So I'm going to work now on the last demo thing featuring one of our exciting, omnipresent, really star performer brass thingies. And I'm going to zoom in here. You're going to do something similar as part of your homework. For that, you're going to need to rotate it from being vertical. You can do that pretty easily. You go up to Image, and image rotation, right? You can do that there. Now it's vertical, image rotation. Now it's horizontal. And if you forget to do that initially, right, it'll do that with all the layers. So that is a thing, just file it away in there. But we have now this layer, it's knocked out, and there's a white backdrop on there, so go ahead and do that. You can just use whatever tool you like. Probably the object selection tool is quickest in this. But what we're going to do is we're going to draw a path and we're going to make some type along it. Now in the demo, I've already drawn a path, so that will save us a little bit of time here. If you are doing the homework, you'll need to draw your own path. Again, pretty straightforward. Don't draw it around the whole thing, just sort of choose one side and draw a path along that edge, similar, I guess, to what I've got here. So I have that there, and I've gone to my paths palette and selected it. Right, that's why it's showing up. If I click off of it, it disappears. And with that path selected, I'm going to come over here and grab my type tool. And what you want to do now, I'm going to zoom in a little bit to make this hopefully easier to see. When I bring my type tool over to the path, you'll notice that the cursor transforms. So it does this little like disco type tool thing. So what that's doing is it's showing you that it can do type on a path. So when we click with the disco type tool, it's going to start our type wherever we click, and then we can type along the remainder of that path. So I'm going to go ahead and click here toward, but not at, the beginning of my path. Throws in a bunch of lorem ipsum, and I'm going to replace that with my own text, as should you. Once was a woman who lived in a shoe. I'm going to select all of it, Command A, and I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. And the shape and path that we've decided to put this on reveals some of the issues with putting type along this undulating path. Namely, that you get weird spacing. So right here we have where the path kind of comes in. The letters run into each other, where the path is more curved out. The letters are spread farther apart. And visually, it's just not that great. So when you're doing something like this, you want to try and have as smooth of a path as you can. Or, right, if you need to have it be along a relatively bumpy path, right, the smaller your type is, the sort of more it's going to be able to accommodate all of those sort of facets as it moves along. Now, you can still go in, if I go up here and grab my, I don't want the paragraph one, I would like the character one, here we go. So I'm going to grab that, and I can adjust tracking out a little bit. And what that does, again, remember, tracking is just spreading our letters farther apart. So by spreading them farther apart, those moments where the letter forms run into each other or are noticeably sort of wonky and spread apart from each other are less visible. So that's another way to deal with this problem, is by adjusting that tracking so that you have a little bit more space and those sort of misalignment collisions aren't as noticeable. There are still some here, right? I can go ahead and maybe put a space in there, right? That's an option. All right, that looks not terrible, right? Doesn't look great, doesn't look terrible. You can adjust the tracking on a sort of like more individual letter-to-letter scale. Right, so that allowed me to tighten that O and that M up, but it also screwed up my A. That's annoying. Okay, put a space in there. All right, so these are the options we have to try and get that spacing correct. Now, the next thing we can do is change where the type starts and where it ends, and I'm going to pause just for a sec and show you how to do that. So something that you'll run into with path on a text is trying to either move it to a different part of the path or running out of space and trying to add some more space by extending that path. And I'll show you how to do both of those things. It's not, I don't know, again, like Photoshop, not a great type layout thing. So let's go ahead and here's our type. Now, when I've clicked on it, one thing you'll notice is down here at the beginning, there's a little X. So that X indicates the beginning point of your type on the path, and it'll show up wherever you click. So if you have a whole path, you click in the middle, your type will start there, and that X will be at whatever point you initially clicked. You can move it though. So to move it, if you hold down the Command key and click on it, you can drag your sort of insertion point along that path. Now, something to pay attention to when you're doing it, because you will probably do this by mistake, if you drag your cursor below the path, it will flip where your text is to the bottom of the path. And you're like, Brad, it didn't flip it to the bottom, it just totally disappeared. Well, that's because, excuse me, our text was aligned to one side, and so when we flipped it over, it aligned to the other side of the path. So there it is, all the way back over there. I'm going to drag it above that picture, or the brass thing, so we can see it. So there you go. That is where that text ended up when we accidentally moved it from one side to the other. So I'm going to do that back. Command. Oh, it's such a pain when it's all the way at the end. There we go. All right, so drag it over. And now I keep hitting spacebar to try and get the hand tool to move, but because I'm actively in that like text, I have my insertion point active, I've actually just put a bunch of spaces in my stupid text, which I can't see because it's all the way on the other side of the image, so I had to manually grab a different tool. Right, there are those spaces. Delete it. Burp. Okay. Now there are no spaces there. So that's how you can move your type along a path if you need to, and just make sure that when you do it, you are not dragging it below the path, because then it will flip the orientation. Up, and there we went. I hit space again. Cool. So the other thing that you can do, I'm going to go ahead and select all, copy, and I'm going to paste a couple of times. All right. So now I have more type than will fit on my path, right? So here's my path. It goes all the way here and stops, but I still have additional words that would like to be there, but they're not, because they have sort of gone beyond the end of that path. Now, something you'll notice is that when I hit space here, right, the entire word disappears. That's because Photoshop is treating it, right, as if I had just like a paragraph of text. So let me make a paragraph of text. Oops, pardon me. Okay, so if I have a nice paragraph of text, when I get to the end of a line, right, it doesn't just have that L and an I and then wrap to the next one. It's going to try and keep whole words together, because that's a lot more legible. So the same thing happens when we are typing on a path. It will also try to keep whole words together, which is why we had a whole word disappear at the end of that. Okay, so going back up here, I would like to extend this path, right? You can see it ends right there, farther along here, so that I have more space for more of those words. Doing this is, to me, way more difficult than it should be. I don't really understand why it's so difficult. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. Maybe there's another way to do it. If you figure it out, let me know. That would be great. So looking here at my type, you can see there's this little circle at the end. So at the beginning we had that X, right? That showed us the insertion point where it began for our type on this path. Here we have the end point, which is this circle. And because we have more type than will fit, right? What's known as overset. Right, we have more stuff in here than we can fit within whatever the bounds are. And you can have this whether it's on a path, whether it's in a box. If I try to put the entire, I don't know, book of Genesis inside a little tiny rectangle, it's not going to fit, right? It's going to spill out the other side. That is overset text, or type, or whatever it is. So that's why there is a little plus in the middle of the circle. So we can, and this is sort of unhelpful, if I hold down Command and grab that endpoint, right, we can drag it back. That doesn't help us, right? We want to drag it farther along, but we can't, because we run out of our path. So if I go here to my paths, right, you can see that there is a new path that is made specifically by putting type on a path, right? There's our path that we initially started, that we drew and that we then clicked on to put the type on the path. But then there is a separate and almost exactly the same path that is specifically tied to our type. So that's the path that we would like to extend. Now, how to do it? You know, the internet says that with that selected, right? I can select my path, click on that last point, and start drawing, but it doesn't work. When I do that, you'll see here that creates a work path, right? Perfectly nice. If I wanted to have a work path, I don't. I want to extend the path that I already have. So once I've drawn that work path, right, just a couple of points, I'm going to go back to my type path, keep going. There we go. So with my path selected again, I can keep adding points and clicking through. Let's try something just so that I could look stupid if it works, because that's one of my many goals really in life, is just looking as dumb as possible. All right, so let's try this again with my path selected. What if I just start clicking? Nope. Okay. Whew. Don't look so dumb. It does indeed just make a work path. All right, so you've made the work path, then you go back, you click on your specifically type path and start clicking, and it will immediately just add those on there. That's great. It adds to that path, but it doesn't shift the endpoint. So once we've done that, right, we've extended our path, now we have to go back in here, Command, click that little ball, and pull it on down the line. So that's how you can extend the path that your type is on. Again, right? Photoshop, not great, obviously, with this. But if you have type in a path and you're like, oh shoot, I need it to be just a little bit longer, that's how you do it. It's kind of stupid. You end up with this like dumb piece of work path that you have to throw away. But you can actually go back in and edit it, which is a lot better than having to start the whole process over. Okay, so that is your introduction to type. For your homework, you're going to need to put some type on a path on one of those other brass things. You're going to need to take some type and manipulate it in some way where there's some effects and some warp and whatever, and that kind of thing. Read the assignment. The third part of the assignment is to go and look at type in the wild. I feel like typography is something that we are constantly exposed to, but we don't necessarily notice, right? It's kind of like photography, right? If you're not a photographer, you're not really paying attention to what photographs look like, and you may not see all the incredibly stupid shit that is passing for professional photography. Same thing with type. If you're not actually thinking about what type looks like, you may not notice all of the weird typographical things that are going on. So part of your homework is to start to pay attention to that stuff. So peep the assignment, see what you have to do. You're going to be taking some pictures of type out there in the wild that you find particularly nice or terrible or egregiously bad or whatever, and turning those in as well. So enjoy. If you find a graphic designer, thank them for their service. Yeah, let me know what you see out there in the real world.